All right, please, this is a video meeting, so we would love that your video is turned on. And also, this is supposed to be a very interactive session. So please, if you have questions, it's best to drop them in the chat or drop them in the notes. So when we create a panel for question and answers, you can simply ask your questions or drop any positive contribution. Okay, so welcome to Bincom Dev Center. Sorry, let me share my screen. Hi, Jude. It's nice meeting you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi.
You're welcome.
Nice to be here.
Same here. We're happy to have you join us.
Thank you.
All right, so this is Bincom Dev Center organizing this PHP meetup, and Bincom Dev Center is a multi-location technology and talent development solution platforms. We have our locations virtually near you. We also have a physical location in Yaba, Lagos State, Oyo State, Kano State, Kaduna State, Ogun State, Delta, United Kingdom, and we have plans to extend and expand to as many locations as possible. You can check out our Bincom campuses to see our locations, and you most likely have one close to you. And then we also have Bincom Academy. These are the services we offer here in Bincom Dev Center. We have Bincom Academy, which utilizes the Montessori approach in training participants in basic skills needed for the modern technology ecosystem. We also have a Bincom Tech internship. If you already have a tech skill and you're looking for a place to intern, trust me, this is the best platform for you. Our Bincom Tech internship is designed to enable people at intermediate skill levels gain mastery and expertise over a period of time. We also have at Bincom Tech apprenticeship, which is an industrial attachment at various skill levels to gain experience and on-the-job training. And we have our Bincom community events and project, just like what we currently have now, which is our PHP meetup. Our Bincom community event is geared at giving back to the community and building the tech ecosystem. And we focus on informing and exposing the youth to the current technology trends and how to prepare for the future in technology. We have our Light Spaces, which provides helpful workspace intended to encourage collaboration and drive innovations in the startup ecosystem. We have spaces that is created and designed for various events like seminars, conferences, and gets together. We have a Bincom Global Tech program. So if you have a tech skill or you're ready to learn a tech skill, Bincom Global Tech program is for you. If you also have these skills and you need experience on the job training, Bincom Global Tech program is for you. And then if you need to gain exposure in the global market, Bincom Global Tech program is for you. The Bincom Global Tech program is your solution to launch your tech career globally. It is a 1 to 2 years program focused on three key pillars: learn skills, gain experience, and gain exposure. We have our Emigrate, which helps you become globally attractive, and your tech-enabled pathway to relocation and settlement in countries like UK, USA, Canada, and France. If you need a mentor, we have our Bincom mentoring platform, which is structured. It's a structured mentoring solution to help mentors add value to mentees for the purpose of building globally attractive techies. And then we have our Labs by Bincom, which is a 3 to 6 month pre-incubator program that brings together participants to build a digital technology product which will be used by real life users. If you have an idea and you want to turn this idea into a product, or you have a startup you're trying to grow, our Labs by Bincom is the best for you. You can check our website so you can be updated on when our next cohort will be starting. And then we have our Bincom Tech Career Coaching, which helps individuals to land their next role faster by offering a combination of coaching, relevant on the job experience, career references, introduction to tech recruiters, and also interview processes and much more. So this is Bincom Dev Center, and if you're interested in any of our services, we'll be dropping links in the chat. So do well to indicate interest in any of the services you prefer or you would like to start a career in. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this session. I'll be dropping off to Jackson to continue this session. Jackson, the floor is yours now.
All right, thank you very much, Joy. So let me quickly share my screen. Please, I'll need permission to share screen. Please let me know where you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Good afternoon once again. My name is Jackson, and I am a backend developer. And I know like there's this notion that back engineers are supposed to be like the smartest and blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, with every language, as it is with every other language, you just have to understand certain principles and structures. And if you understand the core concepts of programming, this would really help your journey, whether you're writing PHP, whether you're writing JavaScript, whatever language you choose to write. We just need to understand the key principles behind some of these languages, because half the time they are all interwoven. And the reason why I chose backend engineering was I didn't exactly enjoy front end. There were too many concepts, too many things that were abstract in my head. So gradually, I fell in love with PHP, and I've been doing PHP for about a year now. But let's get back to business. What we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be discussing securing web applications. And I've broken down this topic into about 6 different chapters. Why we need to talk about security in the first place, why your web application needs security in the first place, the types of attacks that you should look out for, and when you spot them on your web apps, what you should do, how to secure your PHP development, which also has to do with not just with your code, but also has to do with your server and some of the systems that you set in place on your application. And then we're also going to talk about why Laravel, that is why we choose to use frameworks instead of just doing procedural and PHP. And a little bit of extra, so we'll check why these attacks happen, where it happens, and how to add a bit of protection to your application, and then we'll just conclude. I think I've been given about 15 minutes, so I'm going to try my best to stick to time, and we should be done in, let me see what's the time. Yeah, so in about 15 minutes, I'll be rounding off, and so I'll need you guys' attention. So first one, why do we need security in the first place? There are a couple of reasons why we need security for our web applications, but I've been able to tie them down to like 4 very important aspects. One of which is the data protection. Data protection is very important because you do not want to expose users' data to the general public. Was exposing this data to hackers, because once they have access to this data, they can manipulate them and then use them against your customers or your website visitors. This other reason why we also need security, why we need to secure web applications, is because of users' trust. So if your website is constantly having issues, especially when it comes to getting spam mails, or you notice that whenever they come to your website, there are so many cookies, there are so many things that are clicking, and before you know it, they're getting spam links to their email. There's going to be a breach of trust, and nobody would want to return to your website. Another reason why we need security is because of regulatory and compliance issues. So there are a lot of laws put in place. Sorry, give me a second to switch my external display. Sorry, I want to be sure you can. Can everyone still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, one of the reasons why we need security set in place is also because of regulatory compliance. Users all over the world, they're protected by laws, and even users online. So it is not just the people working on the streets. Even when it comes to online, you're compelled by law to protect user data from your websites, one of which is the NDPR and then the CPC, which is like Customers Protection Commission. So they protect users from data breach and their privacy. Another reason why we also need to secure our application is because of authentication. So there are different stages of, sorry, give me a second. Please, can you guys still see my screen?
Yes, you
Yes.
can see it.
Yes. So another reason why we need to protect is because of authentication. So there are levels to authentication that you should have on your website. Not every person that has access to your website should have entire access to some things on your website. So, for example, even when you have engineers, they are supposed to have levels to the type of access that they have. Let's assume you have a bank network, or you're charged with protecting user data. Even within the banking system, you would notice that the people that is at the front desk, there's a certain amount of information or access that they have to a particular application. They might be able to read data, but they would not be able to change data except you set in this permission. So that's also another reason why we need authentication, because you do not want every person that is using your application to have access to every single data on your application. So we're going to look at types of attack, and there are millions, if not thousands, of attacks that goes on the web every single day. But because of the topic and because of what we're trying to do here today, we're looking at PHP especially. So we're just going to talk about 4 very common attacks that the PHP applications they would typically face. One of which is the SQL injection. So SQL injection, attackers would usually inject wrong or malicious code to your database And one common way is creating an admin account to have backdoor access. And I've done this before, but then it was for educational purpose. So I had an issue with a particular client, and then they logged me off, and then they changed password without paying me. So what I did is I found a way to, when you want to register for an application, and then you can add your email and password. So what I did, what is wrong with these people? So what I did is I created another account, but instead of using my regular email, I used an admin email. So by the time I'm logging in back now, I'm not just logging in as a regular user. I use an admin email. So that gave me like a backdoor access. But typically, if you want to build your application, you should prevent stuff like that. So you should be able to, what SQL does is basically is you're trying to gain control of the server or the web application through backdoor access. And it is typically done where you would want to impute user data. So if they are creating new accounts, the email and password field, that is one common way to create an SQL injection. Another one is cross-site scripting, and this is by getting the browser to do something. And most of the time it is with JavaScript that this is used. Most times JavaScript or even TypeScript. So what would happen is you would hijack user session. And what user session means is, say for example, you visit a new website, and then there's this pop-up, this Google pop-up that you should sign in. So you click sign in, and then that browser automatically recognizes this person. So it knows that this is Jackson, and then this is information that Jackson has on that website. But what XSS would do is it would run a script, and then it will go through your session, because that's your browser saving that particular information. It saves it either as a session or as a cookie. But what XSS does is it would go through your browser session, and then it would carry that information, and then it can even transfer that those information to another person, and then the person would use that cookie, and they would log in typically, and to look as if it is you that is trying to gain access to that service. Another one is brute force attack. I don't know if you remember, but there's a time iPhone password used to be about 4. Even now they still allow it, but half the time they will advise you that you should use 6 instead, because it is much more complicated to guess. What brute force does is attackers repeatedly tries to different combination of username and password until they find the correct one. So let's assume on your website you've set username, and then the password is just like maybe 3 or 4 digits. What brute force will do is they will try a lot of combinations of that password until they can guess the right one. There are applications out there now that can even actually do it. So sometime we're going to look at how to prevent this as well. So session hijacking, I already mentioned this one. And it is done in combination with the XSS, which is a cross-site scripting. So they'll hijack your information from your browser, and then they'll impersonate you. So say, for example, you visit jumia.com, and then the browser automatically knows, okay, this is this person, this is the person's order history. Your card is saved on this particular website. So by the time they are stealing your session ID and using it on their browser, they already have access to this information that is already stored on your own browser. So we're going to look at how to secure PHP development. Sorry. Why we should secure PHP, and then why we choose to use frameworks for security. The reason why we use frameworks instead of just using procedural PHP. Using PHP frameworks like Laravel and Yi can significantly enhance the security of your web application for several reasons. And this is because this framework comes in built with security features and best practice that helps developer create more secure application. Sometimes if you're building from scratch, it becomes very complicated because you have to worry about a lot of things. You have to worry about user authentication. you have to worry about server, you have to worry about the structure of your code. There are too many things to worry about, but what framework does is it kind of gives you like a boiler template on what you're supposed to do and what you're to do. And one of the very key things that comes with Laravel and Yi framework is that it is very secure. They have a lot of security features on these frameworks that makes them better than just using your regular code. So why we use frameworks, for example, authentication and authorization. So frameworks provide a robust authentication system out of the box, including features like secure password hashing and CSRF protection. So what this means is that when you use framework, there are some features already that is enabled within that framework that helps use hash password. So when you're storing passwords to the database, you're not storing the password as the user had like input from the front end. Let's assume the user had used admin as their password. By the time you're saving it, especially if you're using framework, even when you're not using framework, this is actually best practice. You should always hash your user's password before you save them to the database. But with frameworks, all of these things inbuilt. Laravel also includes CSRF protection by default, which helps prevent cross-site request forgery, like I mentioned when we're talking about like the different types of attack. For Yi framework also comes with active records implementation, which uses parameterized queries and prepared statements, reducing the risk of SQL injection. We mentioned SQL injection in the beginning and how it works. So one of the ways to prevent this attack is to actually use prepared statements, which Yi framework itself offers. Security widgets, yes. So Yi includes security widget like CAPTCHA to protect against automated bots and authentic clients for secure third-party authentication. So, you know, when you're to fill a form and then there's like this little CAPTCHA that you have to either tick the box to prove that you're not a robot, or you have to do like basic maths. Those are some of the features that Yi comes with, and it's the reason why it is there is for added security, so people do not spam your website or you don't have bots running on your website. So for extra protection, by utilizing PHP frameworks, developers can leverage a robust set of security features and best practices. This framework offers built-in authentication, authorization, input validation, and protection against common vulnerability like the ones we've mentioned earlier. One of the extra features, the Yi frameworks and Laravel, which is the most common PHP framework, is the logging and monitoring. So Yi provides a system that can be used for security and monitoring and auditing. So when you're saving to the database, at the time, Yi would log what time that particular data was saved to the database. That way, when you're doing check or you're trying to check for errors, it is easy for you to monitor or see when this particular issue started, and they'll be able to trace back to it will help you troubleshoot basically. And then for Laravel database migration allows for controlled schema changes, reducing the risk of unauthorized database modification. So with Laravel, when you're using the migration feature, it reduces the chance of people directly manipulating your database, the structure of your database from the front end, or using exploitative tools, because for you to manipulate the database, you actually need to run a migration. So that's one of the features of Laravel when it comes to securing your web application. In conclusion, by utilizing PHP frameworks, developers can leverage a robust set of features. And yes, so that's and okay, so there's an interesting fact, and this is one of the biggest attack that's been recorded for PHP frameworks for PHP program in general. So this happened in 2017. I don't know if any of us know about Magento. They are not very popular anymore, but they used to be up there in terms of they were with Wix. They were top there with Wix, with WordPress. What else again? Like they were very big. So there was in 2017, they had a vulnerability that is named card bleed, which allowed hackers to steal credit card information. And as at the time, Magento was very big. They had over 9 million e-commerce business that was hosted on it. And then the card bleed feature, security breach affected over 3,000 businesses. So like I mentioned before, you know how when you log into a particular website, your data is temporarily saved on the browser. So what happened is that they were able to steal credit card information of people that was stored on Magento. So with all of this, I hope I've been able to like highlight why it is very important and useful for you to make sure that you protect yourself, you protect your users from attackers on your website. Thank you. Are we still connected? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, Jackson.
Okay, sorry. Okay.
Hello, can anybody hear me? I don't know if our host is still there.
Okay. So maybe I should just use the opportunity to take questions if there are questions while we wait for our host to connect back. So please, do you have any questions or any contribution? I actually would like a contribution at this point, but if there are questions, please go ahead. All right, so.
Jackson,
Yes,
thank
Alex.
you for the presentation. I find it very useful. Oh goodness.
You're welcome. So,
because I've gained a lot of things from this presentation, even though it was just a brief introduction into it. So I have a question.
Yes, please.
When you spoke about the cross-site scripting,
yes,
and cross-site, that's the CSRF. What's the difference between both?
Between cross-site scripting and
the CSRF, the cross-site request forgery, I think.
Okay, yeah, they're a bit similar, and half the time these security breaches it is not one particular one. Like half the time it's a combination of different things. So for example, now when I was talking about the SQL, half the time it is not just SQL that it is used. You can also combine that with brute force, which is trying to guess the password. So by the time you're guessing the password, you can when you guess the password, you can actually now use that access to inject a script on the website. So for the difference between XSS and CSR, I mixed the two of them up, but they are very similar in terms of one is more of a request. So, when you're making XML requests, and this is common when you're using Ajax, instead of, like, you don't want the website to load and you want to get information from the database. So half the time, one of the most common security measure is you do not allow those requests to go directly to the database. You either create like an hashing algorithm that for every request. So it compares, and then if it finds that request is like it is a safe request, it will give you access to that particular database. But with the forgery, what would happen is no matter the kind of request that is being sent, what it would tell the server is this particular request is correct, it is true, and it is safe. So it gives that particular request access to whatever information direct your database that they want to.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is there any other question or contribution? I don't think our host is connected, so okay. There's a question in the chat box. Why can't I see it? Popped up just now. What's my chat box? Can someone read the question? I cannot find. Oh, this is my external display. Can someone read the question, please?
Comes to authorization in Laravel, is it okay to use pack or the inbuilt authorization?
It depends mostly on the structure of your web application. So if you see that you're trying to serve like a lot of people, of course you're allowed to use packages and plugins I call them plugins anyway. You're allowed to use so it depends mostly on the structure. If you feel like your web application would not be taking a lot of users, it's fine just using the default authorization feature that Laravel has so far. All right. So because of time, and I think our host is having connection issues. I don't know. Jude, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, Jackson.
All right. I would appreciate, maybe you can go ahead until you can take your session now.
All right.
I hope you have permission to share screen.
Or some notification that say that I've been made a co-host, so I believe that should enable me to do that. Let me see. My screen.
I can't see it from my end. It just says you started sharing screen, but I can't see it.
Yeah.
Okay, it says your screen share is loading.
Okay.
So let's see. Still looking at.
I think it's your connection.
Or you should start. I should stop and start it again.
Okay, let me stop. Looks like Can't. Seeing the reason why it's happening.
Or can someone else present for you if the person has your slide with them?
I didn't give any.
You can just share it with Jackson, I guess, so he can help you with it.
Okay. So that I can be able to.
At the money there is. I need the money.
Okay. And then okay.
We can
Can
see
you
your
guys
screen. Yes, we
okay
can.
about that? All right. So good afternoon, everyone. So excited to be part of this PHP meetup. Strategies for securing web applications. And it's going to be focusing on PHP and Laravel applications. So my name is Stephen Jude. I'm the CTO at international students to process their borderless payment in minutes, not in days. And also I contribute to open source. I build a lot of open source packages. You can find me on GitHub, Stephen Jude, and you can also find me on Perform, like I used to call it. All right. So why are we talking about PHP security today? I'm going to be building on about, mostly trying to give an example, if possible, illustrate and how we can resolve them. But why are we talking about PHP security? Powers over 80% of web applications. So is a very huge market size for the PHP for all of us. It means that we have a lot on our table. It means that we are not going to run out of jobs. But then we also realize that 81% of malicious traffic are targeted at is a statistic that I pulled out from 2018. And then PHP security is that when this attack happened, of these attacks that were successful, PHP accounts for most of them. So this is most of us, we build an application, we don't care about what happens. But with this time, with great power comes great responsibility. So power comes great responsibility. I don't know why I didn't show. Okay. What's the agenda for today's talk? We are going to explore on PHP applications. We are going to look at the techniques that we can use and we're also going to look at code snippets and examples, especially in PHP and Laravel. Fourthly, we are going to look at I believe this will help you. This is going to go beyond respect to our day-to-day applications, especially people that are running modern applications. And finally, I'm going to answer your question. So these are the things we are going to do today, and let's jump in. So what threats? Like Jackson mentioned, that there are these three: cross-site scripting and cross-site request forgery. These are the three, call it the dominant attacks that the PHP applications have received over the. What is SQL injection? This is when a malicious user authorized database operations. This attack is always focused on trying to perform actions in your database. It could be deleting those data, it could be modifying those data, it could be anything. But this SQL injection is focused on PHP applications and their database. How do you prevent this? We call it the best way to protect your PHP application or your Laravel is using prepared statements. It's very important that we started writing PHP before PHP 7. We queries that we just concatenate string works. That's fine, but we have to adhere to best practices. And one of these best, let me show you an example. For example, we want to select from the users table where SQL statements. Now, this SQL statement is vulnerable. If the ID is coming from the user of our application, he could not just only add ID, he could add additional statements. And with this additional statement, SQL query statement, he could make additional SQL queries on our database. So let's say the user passed this string as the ID. It passed one, close the SQL query, and then initiate or enter the new SQL statement. Now with this already, this is what our output is going to be. Select from users table where ID is equals to 1, and then the second query will be drop table users. Now with this statement, we have already compromised our application. So how do we fix this? We use prepared statements. Now, how do you prepare a statement? It's very simple. You need to pass question mark as your parameter, as your query parameter. So instead of passing or injecting your PHP variable directly in your SQL statement, you identify that parameter or that particular query that you want to substitute with a question mark, and then you bind that question mark to your variable, like we are seeing here. So like PHP, we have MySQLi, and remember we have PDO. If you are running a PDO, if you are using a PDO driver, this is how your statement looks like, and you execute the query. And with this, our output will be select from users where ID is equals to the whole statement. So this statement is safe. So even if a malicious user enters our application and tries to tamper with our SQL statement, because we have used prepared statement to secure our app, we are free from these injections, SQL injections. So let me show you a Laravel example. Most of us, we use the DB queries, that is raw queries. We call it raw queries in PHP because Laravel provides us with eloquent model. So with eloquent model and eloquent itself, we don't need to write the traditional SQL statement. We just need to leverage what Laravel has given to us in the eloquent API. But for sometimes we want to write a custom database query. In this case, we want to select users where the ID, and we did the same wrong thing we did when we are writing a plain PHP. We pass the ID directly injected inside our query. Now, this is going to be the same thing with our this. So if you are using a Laravel application and you are writing raw queries without using prepared statements, you are still exposing your Laravel application to SQL injection. So how do we fix this for a Laravel application? Laravel provides, Laravel takes note of prepared statements. So we just need to pass our question mark as our parameter, and then we now bind our variable to the question mark as the parameter, and we'll have a query that is not exposed to MySQL injection. So I think that's that for SQL injection. The next thing we are going to talk about is cross-site scripting. Now, cross-site scripting is a situation where the attacker is not focused on running SQL statements in your database. No, that's not necessarily the case, but it could still be part of it, right? But the intention is that he wants to execute his own code inside your code. Usually, these code are usually JavaScript code most of the time, because they are code that could run on the browser, on the web browser without hitting the server. And there are other ways they could do this to get to your server too. But the point is that cross-site scripting, the intention of these attackers or malicious users is to inject and execute malicious code. That's their intention. They want to execute their own code, probably to redirect your user out of your web application or to send them to another place. If you notice, some people, they will share a link with you, and that link shows that it's coming from, let's say, Jumia. But then you see that there's some parameters that doesn't look nice. But even though you know that this is a perfect Jumia domain name and everything and the rest, that particular, those additional statements could include the script that they want to inject in your browser, in the application that you are trying to run. So how do we prevent this? Preventing cross-site scripting is a work in the going. Why I say it's a work in the going is that I found out that Laravel 8 had a cross-site scripting vulnerability, Laravel 8. I'm still going to come to that, but for now, let's stick with this. So first is that you have to always sanitize your inputs and your outputs. It's very important that you take note of this. You must sanitize the input that comes in. Whenever a user sends you information, validate it, add validation. After you have validated it, clean it up. For example, inputs like input that comes from what you see is what you see editor could contain a lot of HTML. So why you validate that this is a string, which is a valid string that contains HTML, is also very important that you sanitize this in a case that you are not sure or you don't trust where this input is coming from. The same thing with your output. When you are presenting data to your users, make sure that those data you are presenting are sanitized. If they are not sanitized, they could be open and vulnerable to SSS. And how they will be vulnerable is that, let's say, for example, that the user, a user site was injected with a script, and you are to present that script to that user on their web browser. If you have not sanitized that, that data is going to run as if it was that user, and it's going to run anything that the malicious user has encoded in it, and it's going to expose your users, the users of your application. The second one is the one that I recommend. Use anti-SSS supported libraries, template engines, and frameworks. Some of us, we are stronger. I'm going to write my own framework. That's fine. This is cool. Just try. But while you are doing that, make sure you use libraries that support this, because these attacks are plenty. But some libraries have made it easier that they pick on all the common attacks that usually come to applications, and they solve it once and for all so that everybody can use it. That's the essence of open source. So we make use of these libraries, and also some template engines like Blade template engines, Lattice template engines, even Twig. These template engines, to some extent, help us sanitize the inputs, the output of the data that we want to present. Frameworks like Laravel helps us to sanitize the inputs that comes to our application. So let's look at an example. This is a plain PHP example. Let's say we want to get the full name of a user that was posted to our application, and we want to display that full name. But the problem with this full name is that it was injected with a script, a malicious script. that was supposed to hurt our user. Now, because we didn't sanitize this input, we are going to execute this script without knowing, thereby exposing our application, exposing our user and their data to this malicious attacker. How do we stop this? We sanitize our inputs. So when you have an input from a customer, from a user that you want to display immediately for them, make sure you sanitize it. If you're using plain PHP, I believe you know about HTML special character. This will sanitize this input. And when we display this input, our output will be more like a cleaned, unexecutable HTML, thereby rendering the malicious user useless in this case. Let me use that one. So this is an example of plain PHP, but let's look at Laravel. In Laravel, we have Blade, and Blade gives us its echo statement. Its echo statement comes in two ways, the double bracket and the single bracket with double exclamation mark. So this is an unescaped Blade statement. So this statement is going to execute whatever script that is being passed to this input. And with that, if that happens, our Laravel application is as vulnerable as that plain PHP application. So when you are using this, please be sure that the input that you are displaying or the data you are displaying is safe. Especially be sure that it's not coming from the user. If it's coming from the user, what I would advise is that you use the Blade echo statement. This Blade echo statement automatically displays, automatically stripes all the JavaScript that are supposed to run in this code and make sure that they are useless before it shows it to our user. So thereby saving our user from this malicious attack. So let's talk about cross-site request forgery. So cross-site request forgery is a situation. It is almost the same thing like SSS. The only difference is that this attack is targeted at users that have already logged into the web application they are using. And then this attacker tries to perform actions, unauthorized commands, requests on behalf of this user. This usually happens when somebody tries to delete your account as if it was you. This is an example of how cross-site request forgery. So let's say, for example, if you are using Laravel, you notice that whenever you click submit, the default Laravel submit implementation submits to a particular URL. And when that URL executes, it logs out that user and returns them to the login page. Now, with cross-site request forgery, that can be hacked and the user can be logged out of the application without their intention. But the point is that CSRF is targeted at users that have already logged into their application. So how do you prevent this? The first way to prevent this is to use what we call CRF token. We all know what is CRF token in Laravel. This token is checked whenever a data is being sent to the server. Laravel will check that the request is coming with a token, and also it verifies that this token is safe. So how do you also do this? We also prevent CSRF by using CSRF supported libraries, template engines, and frameworks. And I'm going to show you an example of what it looks like to have CSRF. So this is a CSRF for Laravel Blade. So with the Blade templates, automatically we are adding CSRF token to our form. So when this form is submitted, even if somebody initiates this submission from somewhere else on behalf of a user, it will verify that it came from our server, it came from this logged in user, and it was never tampered with. So that's that about cross-site request forgery. So let's talk about a few security recommendations. So in this security recommendation, we are going to look at some of the things we do in our day-to-day Laravel applications and PHP applications. So the first one is about our stack and our infrastructure. This is the most common one. Most of us, we don't update our stack. Some of us are still running code, scripts built on PHP 5, scripts built on PHP 7.1, 7.2, 7.3. these are not safe. You have to keep your stack and infrastructure always updated. Some of us are using Laravel 7. Let me tell you this, from Laravel 8 down is no longer safe for your application. Laravel 8 down is no longer safe for your application. So if you have any application that is running Laravel 8, you are not safe. I think it should be 8.7 or something around that. So you need to learn to keep your stack up to date. Your PHP version should always be coming up to date. We have a lot of packages, open source tools that can help you upgrade your Laravel application, that can help you upgrade your PHP stack and upgrade your code to updated and latest of those technologies. So it's very important. Update is very important. Update is very important. Make sure you are always updating your application. Some of us, even our Laravel 10, we are not updating it. It just is, I'm using Laravel 10. No, you have to update it. You have to constantly update your Laravel 10. Like I have one of you guys here, his name is Nelson. He's the one that migrated our code at Pay For Me. We use Laravel as our stack. That's what we do. That's what we do for our APIs and everything. I can tell you as of now, we have migrated our Laravel application to Laravel 10. We have migrated our LiveWire to LiveWire 3. And we have migrated our filament admin panel to filament 3. So we are constantly updating. This way we are on the safe side. The same thing, we are no longer using PHP 8.1. We are now on PHP 8.2. Our application supports PHP 8.2. I know PHP 8.3, it looks like it's still new, it's still something shiny, but then it's still safer. That any vulnerability that comes on that is instantly fixed because it's actively still being maintained. Laravel 8 is no longer being maintained. PHP 7.3 is no longer being maintained. Move away from this stack and infrastructure. Keep your applications always up to date. So that's that about stack and infrastructure. The second thing we are going to talk about is HTTP security headers. I think this is also one of the ones that most PHP developers don't care about. Reason being that most of our PHP applications already have the basic HTTP headers because Laravel does the work for us. It includes all the necessary HTTP headers. It prevents the malicious ones that have already been reported. But we need to learn about HTTP security headers. We need to learn about policy, origins, same site origin, and the rest. So I will advise you, if you want to check if you have a valid HTTP header in your application, just type the name of go to securityheaders.com, type the URL of your web application, and then you will get an audit of whether your application has up to date and has implemented the security headers that are required. So let's keep our security headers up to date and well implemented. Then that's that about HTTP security headers. The third one we are going to talking about is webhooks. So a lot of us will use webhooks. Most of us we implement payment gateways, maybe third-party services, and we implement their webhooks. But what most of us don't do is that we don't validate our webhooks. So it's very important that you validate your webhook. Keep your webhook validated. Check the signature, confirm that it's coming from where it said it's supposed to be coming from. One of the easiest way to get hacked or to get for your application to be threatened is when your webhooks are not being validated. That means I can from my home, from my computer, not even from a server, from my computer, I can send a webhook request if I know that your webhook, and I can send all the data that you are expecting, and I can successfully act as if I've met all the criteria. So it's very important that we validate all our webhooks. Validate your webhooks. Don't leave it to that nobody knows my webhook or nobody knows the URL. Somebody will definitely get to know it as far as it's on the internet. So the best thing to do is make sure you put a gate there so that it's safe. That's that about validating your webhook. The first one we are going to talk about is error tracking and monitoring. So this is the last I have on my list, but there are a lot of things you have to do. Error tracking and monitoring is one of the things that developers don't care about. And in Laravel, we have a community where we have open source error tracking. We have open source monitoring. We have things that we even gauge our queries and a lot of things, but we are not using them. You need to learn to track your errors, the errors that are coming to your website. Most of you, your users are not coming to tell you that an error dropped on the no. But with error tracking, you know when a user has an error, you can see the information that is causing that error. You even know whether this is a security threat, whether this is something that is unusual, whether this is something that was initiated or was tampered with. So this is a way to put a security, put error tracking, monitor your errors, and have a secured web application. I think that's all from me now. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much. If you have questions, I'm here to listen. Also, my slide is already online. I'm going to share it on the, so that you can take a look if you are interested. I'm going to share it on the chat, and hopefully maybe if they might include it on this thing, on the YouTube link, so that other people can get to access and explore and learn from the information that is there. I think that's that for my talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jude, for the presentation. Thank you very much. I've learned a lot, honestly. You guys you're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. So anyone that has question, let's hear it.
All right. Hi, everyone. Hi, Jude. Thank you for the presentation. I don't have a question, but I do have a contribution. So you mentioned when you have to display HTML input from users to other users, and using Blade, there's a library called HTML purifier. So you don't have to trust, you basically don't trust users input, especially when you allow them to format the HTML by themselves. So what HTML purifier does is that there are common patterns that people do when they want to commit XSS attacks. So it's able to find out those patterns and remove them and clean your HTML for you. And you can also add your own custom watchers to watch out for bad HTML and remove it from being displayed to the user. So if you really have to display input from users to other users, then you should check that library out.
Yeah, that's true. So I think a HTML purifier, there is a PHP anti-SSS, and there is this other one too. So please look out for this. You can find it on Google, and then you can read up from there. Thank you, Nelson. So Jackson, you have a question?
No, I do not have a question. Thank you for your presentation. That was very awesome.
Thank you so much.
So I don't think our host is still connected. Hello, are you there? Just to be sure.
So I think that will be that. Since there is no other question, I'll take my leave now. Thank you for having me. Have a wonderful evening, guys.
All right. I think we'll just end the meeting now since no one is ready. Host is not here. So, okay, let me see if I can switch. I think we can all leave, but the meeting will just keep rolling because I don't have the permission to end the meeting.